Well, this was bad timing on Harry's part. Right when the royal family, King Charles, strips Andrew of his princely title, Harold goes and pulls shenanigans in Canada. The consensus is currently that Harry lied to Canadian organizations and the public when asked, while organizing the trip to Canada, that he had informed the palace, that he had told them ahead of time that he was going to come up to Canada to do activities for Remembrance Day. He told people that the royal family was informed of his visit when they were not. This implied that his trip was approved by the monarchy in order to organize this faux royal trip, which, remember, let's say it together, that is just a publicized vacation, to make it seem like and give people the impression that it was approved by the monarchy and that the monarchy knew, just to get this trip planned and scheduled, is so shady and unacceptable. It is ridiculous. And it couldn't have been a worse plan coming at a worse time. Harry's trip to Canada was both completely irrelevant and stepped on the very toes that he is desperate to make nice with. Harry is not important enough to actively compete with William's royal trip to Brazil, but he did demonstrate poor judgment. But the question is, are the criticisms of Harry overstepping boundaries overblown? So just to summarize briefly Harry's little stint to Canada, he visited Toronto over just 2 days, the 5th and 6th of November. The trip was tied to Remembrance Week and was organized in partnership with the True Patriot Love Foundation, which is a Canadian military charity supporting veterans, active service members, and their families. He also attended a private fundraising dinner for Halo Trust, which raised some eyebrows. Because Halo Trust has been outed as being rather shady, they have been paying their trustees a lot and not getting all that much done on the ground. So a lot of people, a lot of high-profile people have distanced themselves from Halo Trust and stopped supporting them. And this visit came obviously at the same time that Prince William was in Brazil, but it really didn't, even though it prompted media speculation that Harry was trying to upstage William or trying to compete with William. It didn't really work. Harry's visit was overshadowed and not covered very extensively in the press as compared to William's. William stole the show, without a doubt, for sure. But his team insisted that the events were planned nearly a year ago and were scheduled according to the charity's calendar, and they also lied and said that they had informed the palace of the visit when they had not. Now, that alone is enough to be a scandal that they lied about this. But it's Harry and Meghan that we're talking about, and I think people are increasingly unfazed when Harry and Meghan lie, which is annoying. You know, we spend so much time teaching our children to be honest and so much time on guard in our lives for people that we meet in our day-to-day who may lie to us. And, you know, me personally in real life, I am incredibly loyal to people, and I feel betrayed when people are not truthful with me. So I have a very hard time getting past it. And so it's just so unfathomable to me to see so many people in the public eye, not just Harry and Meghan, but there are other people in the public eye who actively lie all the time. And they're just getting away with it. It's so discouraging and annoying, because where is the values of integrity? Why do people not care anymore about people lying? I don't understand it. So I did a little bit more digging. This trip was organized with the True Patriot Love Foundation. They were the ones kind of in charge of organizing this with Harry, and then they coordinated it with Harry's team and kind of told him what events they were going to be doing. But then Harry threw in a couple of extra events. But the True Patriot Love Foundation is a charity, as we said, focusing on veterans in Canada. And they actually became connected with Harry through Invictus when it was held there. So that's probably like how they knew Harry, and where this was initiated was with Invictus. During Invictus, they said, hey, we should maybe do something for Remembrance Week or something like that. Or perhaps Harry asked, because let's be honest, Harry wants to continue to do things that seem like royal activities and royal events. He still wants to keep the royal sorts of work, You know, because for Harry, he doesn't do anything that takes any degree of responsibility. He doesn't have any major initiatives the way Catherine and William do that he's trying to like actually make change. No, Harry's not responsible for anything. Harry's not involved with any change-making initiatives. He's just there. And so for him it's basically like just showing up to some charity stuff every now and then, shaking hands and meeting people. And that's the stuff that he used to do when he was a working royal. And that's what he is relying on these days. That's what he knows how to do. And that's what he keeps doing because it makes him feel like he's still doing royal work, even though it's pointless and meaningless now because he represents no one but himself. But this True Patriot Love Foundation, I'm not sure I like the name of this foundation. It feels a little strange. It doesn't roll off the tongue very nicely. It's a bit of a bizarre name for a foundation, I feel. But anyway, they are also the main funder of the Canadian Invictus team. So they are heavily involved with Invictus and thus Harry. But I also discovered that the CEO previously worked for, I think it is the CEO, his name's Nick Booth. He previously worked for the Royal Foundation many years ago. So he may have had some sort of a friendly working relationship with Harry, or at least been acquainted with Harry in the past. So that may have influenced his willingness to connect with Harry and work with Harry. But I'm also kind of surprised because if he previously worked for the Royal Foundation, you would think that he would understand just how controversial Harry is and how unlikable Harry is because of his betrayal to the royal family and his refusal to even acknowledge the involvement that the Royal Foundation and the other royals had in Invictus becoming a success and sustaining it over the years. But setting that aside, Harry was obviously the publicity tool. He was there to try to get some publicity and some eyeballs on the gala, which he attended and he spoke at, because that is the foundation's main fundraising event of the year. So they rely heavily on the Remembrance Week gala for fundraising each and every year. So it's their kind of biggest deal. So having Harry join was an attempt to get better publicity and perhaps get more tickets sold to this gala. However, the lack of coverage of this was probably not exactly what anybody expected. I don't think that they thought Harry wouldn't be able to get a lot of press, because he really didn't. Like, there were some articles, don't get me wrong, but it just wasn't covered in the same way as some previous events with Harry were. And I think it's a handful of things. I think that Harry and Meghan are so overexposed that people just are not as interested. People aren't clicking on the articles as much, so fewer articles are going to be written because the cost ratio just isn't there. But I also think that it's just the overall reputation with Harry, that people now more and more understand that he's not an official royal and he's there with no official association, so it doesn't make sense. And on top of that, Harry is incredibly unlikable. So is Meghan. And they've consistently been voted most unlikable many years. Plus, with Meghan doing all of her Netflix stuff and losing the deal, all of that draws so much more publicity to their failures because Meghan talks about it so much and is constantly thirsty for headlines that it just takes away some of the integrity and some of the meaning behind having Harry show up to anything. And so I wouldn't be surprised if they were a little bit disappointed at the results of having Harry come to this and then not really getting much return. But his comment at that gala that Toronto gave him a wife was foolish and cringeworthy. It just sounded silly. He should have or could have just said that this is where he met his wife or where they spent time when they were dating or where they fell in love. I don't know, just something like that. But she's not from Toronto. Everybody in the comments from Toronto says we don't claim Meghan. So that just ended up sounding dumb for Harry to be like, Toronto, you gave me a wife. No, Toronto did not. She just so happened to be working in Toronto when you met her, Harry. She's not from there. He also took time out of his most important visit to honor the veterans to reference the Dodgers cap situation, claiming that he was like forced to wear it, but at heart, he is some sort of a diehard Toronto Blue Jays fan. He is fooling no one. That was so cringeworthy and sort of pathetic. Like, who really cares, Harry? Nobody cares about your hat. They care about your overall vibe. They care about what you're trying to do versus what you say. They care about your hypocrisy. They care that you and your wife are annoying. Okay? They don't care, actually, that you wore a Dodgers cap versus a Blue Jays cap. Nobody wants you to be their fan. That's not what this is about. People are going to stay mad at Harry as long as he acts like a petulant dipshit. It has nothing to do with which baseball team he claims to support. No one cares. It's not going to help his case. How out of touch can Harry be? He also drew criticism for squeezing in appearances with official military groups that were connected to the monarchy, since he is not a working royal. And that's the piece that really ties back into the fact that Harry told people that he approved this with the palace, or informed the palace, because the military groups that he visited are directly connected to the monarchy. Queen Camilla for sure, and I think also King Charles. And I mean, really, ultimately, King Charles just by default. So because of that, it should have been cleared with the palace ahead of time. And so if Harry was lying to these people, that's why then they didn't go and tell the palace, and Harry snuck in there like a weasel. Horrible etiquette. Bad manners, and it's not going to endear him to the royal family at all if he really is trying to soften things. And he says when he gets the chance, he always is like, oh yes, it's about spending time with my father. It's all about my father. And then he never goes, and he does stuff like this. Shady stuff behind the scenes, pulling fast ones and stepping on toes. Although, the fact of the matter is that what Harry does is becoming increasingly irrelevant, boring, and not covered heavily in the news. Simply put, Harry has lost traction. He also did step on toes on this visit. He should have kept his activities to the private foundation and charities that have no official connection to the monarchy. By going forth with official military links and official military groups, he did, by doing that, cross a boundary. And by ignoring those boundaries, he positions himself as desperately trying to compete, just as the timing of the visit does. It doesn't matter that his team said it was scheduled and planned by a foundation. It does not matter that he claims he didn't mean to try to compete with William's trip. It does not matter that he says he tried to approve it with the palace or let them know, and that he's just there in a private capacity. None of that really matters. The timing gives it all away and makes it appear that he is trying to compete. The format and choice of activities makes it appear that he's trying to compete. It's futile, but nevertheless, by choosing those activities at that particular time in the calendar, it positions Harry as still trying to compete and being antagonistic, uncooperative, and ignoring the boundaries of the royal family in doing so. And it's very simple. The optics of this do matter in the public sphere. If there is an organization that is connected to the monarchy that he himself rejected and complained about for years and left, then he needs to sidestep that entirely. He needs to give that space and stay out of it. Otherwise, he will look as though he's desperate to compete, trying to copy William's boat ride. It's no question who looks better here, or trying to appear as though he is still a working royal, even though he is not. Honestly, my personal opinion, I don't think that he was trying to compete directly. I don't think that Harry is trying to compete. I don't think he wants to go back to being a working royal. I do, however, think that he tried to flesh out his diary for the trip to try to come up with more stuff to do, because Harry has made it clear that he's not capable on his own of figuring anything else out. He doesn't know how to do anything else except for what he always used to do, which was royal engagements when he was a working royal. That was his whole career besides his time in the military. And so it kind of makes sense that this is his default. This is what he really knows. And after watching everything not work out with Meghan, then it's logical for him to kind of try to retreat back into his old type of events, engagements, calendars, schedules, stuff like that. It doesn't make it right, but I think that's all it is. I don't think he's actively trying to stir the pot or compete on purpose, but I do think he doesn't know what else to do and how else to be. His team tried to make an excuse that the reason why they didn't let the palace know ahead of time was because of security, that they had to keep it secret because if they told anybody, then Harry's private security might be in jeopardy. Horse hockey. Nonsense. Bull. No. Does he think the palace is going to snitch, like to some paparazzi or something? Like, what does he think is going to happen if he lets the palace know ahead of time? So this was actually ended up being a bit of a cop-out that they're like, we told the palace, we told them. And then they're like, oh, well, we had to wait because of security. We couldn't tell the palace till the day of or the day as it was happening. Nonsense. Absolutely nonsense. That is sus. It's just trying to cover your butt. At the end of the day, they're just trying to backpedal and backtrack because they realized they should have because it's a Commonwealth country, etc. And that brings up this whole rumor that Harry and Meghan are going to try to go to Australia next. Now, the fact that that was in a letter and it somehow got leaked is suspicious. And now there's this press, I think, trying to test the waters on whether an Australia visit is viable. They are obviously trying to see if Australia will reach out to them. I think they're fishing for another trip. But I sure hope they don't, especially to a Commonwealth nation. I don't think it's a good idea. As we know, their publicized vacations don't tend to go well. They don't do them any favors. People don't appreciate it. The public doesn't respond well to them. But back to Harry's Canada trip and this whole security thing. What? He is still trying to find a way to manipulate King Charles into just solving the problem and overriding everybody to give Harry the security that he wants by saying like, well, how am I supposed to tell you my calendar? If I have to pay for private security, then I won't be safe if I tell you my calendar ahead of time. It makes no sense. Who is the palace going to tell Harry? Nobody. They don't tell anybody anything. They are the least leaky of all. Harry is the one who leaks. Meghan is the one who leaks. Oh, it's ridiculous. But leave your opinions in the comments. I cannot wait to read the discussion there. Thank you for joining me today. If you have not yet already, consider subscribing, clicking the hype button and the like button, but only if you want to. I hope you have a happy day ahead, and I will see you next time. Bye!